God, that music is like a fucking church service.
I don't know where you found that, but I was nearly
I
asleep.
didn't find it. We're so limited on what we've got. If people want to give us lots of money, we can afford to put our own up.
Yes, give us money so we can have some decent music. That would be great.
There is a donate button, isn't there, on the website? Can I have the link to YouTube in the Facebook chat, please, so I can share it?
I just put it on the event page. Let me just put it in. I've put it on the event page, but I've not put it on the Soapbox page yet. Let me just drop the link there. We are live, aren't we, having this conversation?
Yeah, we are live.
We are live, yeah.
No, sorry, you just have to listen to us sort out logistics. Yeah, I've not put it on the Soapbox page because I don't know if I can post on the Soapbox page.
You have to change it, I think.
I can stick it on the Soapbox page.
Yeah, somebody else put it on the Soapbox page. And I'm going to put it on my own.
And now I've come up as Soapbox and not me, so I don't know how to post it as my own.
That's okay, though.
We're organised. There we go. Right.
I don't know how to not be me. Not be Soapbox.
Well, good.
I know how to be me. Thankfully, it'd be fucking terrible if I didn't, wouldn't it? I can't share it as Gail. I can only share it. Can you inbox it, please?
Yeah.
That would be really useful. Hello to anyone's watching. I don't know if anyone's watching or not because I'm not.
I've sent it to the Soapbox.
Well, 3 are watching. I think that's probably us.
Is that us? I'm not watching us, by the way.
I'm not watching us, so we have got
actual people out there.
Hello, people.
If there are people, can you say hello to us so we know you're there? Just to massage our egos a little bit, so we know we've actually got people listening.
Okay.
Right, who wanted the link? No, you've done it. Cool.
Yeah, I'm just going on my laptop now, and I have to mute it really quickly. Otherwise, there's going to be a weird. There you go. There's the delay. Anyway, so I've got the link on my laptop. I am just going to post it on my wall, and let's talk about activism.
Cool. I'm going to stick you on the big picture because I don't like looking at myself just because I can. So activism.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, we're all activists, and I guess if anybody's out there listening, most of our friends and people we know are the same. I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's quite a depressing thing, I found at times.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard work. So often mentally hard work, I think. It's often fighting an uphill battle or pissing in the wind.
Years ago, one of my friends given me a very, very strong warning about activist burnout, and I just kind of brushed it off. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen to me. This is great. This is fine. I'm doing well. And it did happen. I totally burnt out and made myself quite ill years ago. Like, no, that's not oh, God, there's the sound. Hang on.
I've had burnout twice, actually.
Yeah, it's dreadful.
And it's really hard to pull yourself out. You fall into it much quicker than you can get out of it.
Oh, yeah, know?
Yeah. Burnout is absolutely a thing. I think you have to. I mean, these days, I definitely section my time for activism, but then a lot of the things I do, like something else, is part of my activism.
Yeah,
my band
absolutely.
And the songs I write are part of my activism. So I've found more pleasurable, less demanding ways of being an activist, I guess.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Activism isn't a defined activity that you can put into one box. It seeps into every area. When you're an activist, it becomes your entire life, doesn't it? In a lot of ways. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not something you do. It is who you are.
It's part of who you are, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, it's almost an identity in a way as well. I think often. I mean, it gets into every section of your life. I mean, it gets into sometimes what you eat, the clothes you choose to buy, the ethics around it, the morals around so many things.
The guilt you carry, because you have to live in a capitalist society and be a hypocrite. I hate the fact that I have to be a hypocrite, you know.
Yeah.
And that's forced on you, and then you've got the guilt that goes with
Yeah, because we've still got to live in a world that's entirely imperfect.
And that's something that's levelled at activists quite a lot. You know, I can't remember. There was some big protests, series of big protests. Maybe it was anti-cuts or something a few years ago, and there was a big thing being made out of, you know, sort of activists or people on marches going in and buying coffee.
Oh yes, I remember that. Yeah, there were a load of
or using a smartphone at an environmental.
Yeah. Oh man,
you posted that on your iPhone.
Out in the Badger Cove zone. Out in the Badger Cove zone, there were vegans who were giving grief to people out there who weren't vegan and telling them they shouldn't be out there. And it's like, who eats fucking badgers? You know? Well, that was my, you know, I mean, you know, I don't care about being popular, but I mean, I wasn't vegan at the time. I was vegetarian, but then you have people pretending to be something they weren't in order to not get grief. But there were people that stopped going out into that coal zone because they were getting grief from the vegan police, you know, and I'm vegan, but I can't, apart from in my own space, in my own home, I can't tell people what they can or can't eat. And I certainly wouldn't risk something that I was fighting against or fighting for. Somebody's diet wouldn't come into that. You know?
And if you want to bring people in, if you want people to understand what you're fighting for and get on board with you, you're not going to do that by making them feel like shit. You know, you're not going to do that by excluding them. You're going to do that with you know, showing examples. You know, I think the stuff that you do with posting pictures of the food that you cook and the cookbook that you're about to bring out, that is incredible vegan activism, because people are going to look at that and go, oh, but if you tell them that they're a piece of shit for, you know, eating cheese or whatever, they're just going to shut down. They're not going to listen.
Of course. I just think it's nicer if you go, look, there is an alternative. You don't have to do it all the time, but maybe just give it a go. It's easier than you think. It tastes better than you think. You know, I mean, I wear leather boots. I'm not a vegan activist, you know, really.
You are in some ways, though.
But I certainly made the leap with my diet, because sometimes when I do eat cheese, I get the terrible guilt. But, you know, if you're out and about and there's no vegan options, and you want to make, you know, you're in someone else's house and you didn't pay for it and stuff, can't, you know, some people are freegan where they'll eat anything if they didn't pay for it. I can't,
died or whatever.
Sentient creatures, I just can't
do
that. That's just not, you know, that switch flicked quite a long time ago. But we've
all got the levels of our morals. You know, we've all got our own parameters, and
well, it's your compass. It's up to you where you want to fucking point it, really.
Yeah, things we built up, and limits we've set ourselves with things. And there's, like you were saying just now, there's a great deal of pressure, I think, from other people, from other activists, to conform, you know, to the letter of the law, as it were.
Well, and to sit in with what their moral compass is, and what, you know, the standards that they've set for themselves. It's a very personal thing, you know. Your morals and your principles are personal, and you know, it's quite healthy if to a point that they're fluid and adaptable. Yeah. There are some that, you know, never will I think that a living fascist is a good one, ever. You know, I feel absolutely a bit like that about Tories as well, to be fair. You know, I can't, like, some people are like, yeah, well, you know, I've got friends who are racist, or I've got friends that vote Tory or think this or blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I can't do that. You know, I there's something that I don't want to spend my whole time debating with somebody. No. And I know that I can't keep my mouth shut, because the trouble with people like that is if they know you're an activist, they will look for your buttons.
Oh, yeah. They want to challenge you all the time, and that gets really exhausting.
Yeah, it's little prods, like, you know, because they know that you're in a position because you're around other people that you're kind of trying to behave. So they'll prod. And but I don't, if you're that fucking self-absorbed, or you're that intolerant of minorities and people with protected characteristics, I don't like you, I'm not going to like you. We're not going to get on. So that I don't have those people as my friends.
No, there are some people that I disagree with that I can find some point of compromise with. But when it comes to fascism, no, there is no compromise there. There's none to be had, and there shouldn't be any to be had. It's not something that should be fucking tolerated.
And what sits under that umbrella is racism and sexism, although we have to deal with the kind of the ingrained social programming within this misogynistic society with that. So pulling people up, like I did the other day about a rape joke. And he was like, in the end, was like, yeah, I got it. Thank you for pointing it out.
Yeah.
Because it just didn't register, But you can't, I just can't tolerate intolerance. So if it's transphobia, homophobia, sexism, racism, even sizeism, ableism, ageism, all those things, they all sit under that umbrella of what should be perfect. And they all come from that white supremacist rhetoric, if you do not sit into this perfect model of a white human being with blonde hair and blue eyes, preferably male, straight, cis, then you're less worthy.
No, absolutely. I mean, with some things you've got to find the line between, is it malevolent bigotry or is it ignorance? And like you say, that kind of ingrained shit, because some stuff can be worked on, like the guy with the rape joke the other day, sometimes challenging things and making people see things
so
really work.
I couldn't believe it.
If it's malevolent bigotry, then no, I'm not discussing that with you. You can just get in the bin, actually.
I mean, I can see why I could see why a mistake could be made over that, referring to the rape joke. I could see why he might have stumbled and thought and didn't think past the initial text.
It's about me and having a wank.
He was just, that's basically what he thought. He thought it was just a masturbation joke, and I could, I saw it and I could see why.
Okay, just for anyone watching, I should probably read what it said, and I'm not picking on you, mate, who posted it up.
That's a really convenient example.
It is, because it just happened this week. So it is, I molested myself last night. I said no, but I knew I wanted it. And my argument was, it is a rape joke. It's sticking the finger up at consent. And it's using the rhetoric that rapists use.
Oh God, it's a cliche, isn't it? She wanted it really.
And then I had to point out, I also pointed out, this isn't about what happened to me recently. I'd be calling this out anyway. Because
for sure.
These things, like racist jokes and trans jokes and fat people jokes and all the rest of it, are the foundation for bigotry. And the harder hitting bigotry that turns to violence and hatred and all the rest of it sit on those foundations. We have to destroy those foundations and go, actually, no, that's not all right.
But it's the little things, it's the drip, 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 isn't it, that allows the bigger things to go uncommented on.
Absolutely.
And
it's really important to challenge those little things.
When you challenge those little things, as an activist or just as a human being,
you are an activist if you're challenging those things.
Exactly. And people, I think, view you as sometimes being petty. But I think we can be seen as being petty. They can't. Often people can't see or don't want to see the bigger picture, or they don't like being called out. No one likes being called out. Especially if you don't agree with, rape jokes, and you happen to be a good, decent person anyway, and you click share without thinking too much.
Well, then you're like, I wouldn't do that. Like, I'd never. Yeah, of course. I like it when people call me out, and having the opportunity to think about those things and put your hands up. And sometimes people call you out and they're wrong, But
you can start a conversation about that, can't you? I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? We're all human. We're all imperfect. Anybody can fuck up. And maybe, part of being an activist is being able to be called out and take that with grace and humility.
Owning your shit is
absolutely, absolutely, and taking ownership of those times when you do fuck up and doing
there
better.
are some there's been some awful occurrences on the activist scene.
Absolutely,
there are people involved in it for completely the wrong reasons, and Yeah, and then you get into the territory, especially on protest camps and stuff, of kangaroo courts and stuff like that. And it's like, no, if they've been out of order and it's beyond, reproach, then they have to go, And if you want to call the police in because there's been a sexual assault on a protest camp or something, you are perfectly within your right to do that, and I don't like, I mean, there was, there's been a few occurrences of stuff like that over the years as well. So it's not like all activists are good.
No, no.
None of us are perfect by any means, but there are some people who aren't activists that get involved in the scene because they know it's full of passionate people.
Yeah.
They know it attracts a lot of vulnerable people.
Yeah.
It's the same as the festival scene,
really.
Absolutely. So it will attract predators, know, and then people want to build some kind of trust, especially in protest camp and holding space kind of activism, because that there's a good risk that you're going to be infiltrated. You want to be able to trust your guts. You can't do these things on your own, so you have to work with other people that you don't really know. And that gets abused sometimes. I mean, that's definitely a thing as well.
That's part of human nature, sadly, in that you will always get somebody, no matter whether, I don't know, whether you're holy people on some religious people on a holy mountain, or whether you're down a tunnel on an HS2 protest. That's like I say, human nature to, you're always going to find somebody who's going to exploit that situation.
Which is awful, so it does make it, I mean, we're talking about quite full-on radical activism rather than your daily stuff you can do in your daily life. There's so many different levels. It's like the whole protest thing. I mean, personally, I think in this day and age, A to B marches can get in the sea. I think they're pretty useless. I think creative protest is really important. But then, A to B, okay, so you're at least putting your face out there and adding to the numbers. Sometimes petitions, along with other things, are effective, but you need all these different things. And you also need the full-on direct action.
Yes, yeah.
And everything in between. So people go, no, well, it's terrible that, I mean, oh, God, I shuddered at the Van Gogh thing, in the soup the other day.
Yeah, me too. But people talked about it. And they weren't
had
doing
it been
before.
A constable, I'd have been, only because Van Gogh has a special place in my heart. But once I got past that, I went, actually, it wasn't going to cause any damage.
No.
All right, okay, so somebody had to clean it up. Same with the milk in the shops and stuff. But people saying, oh no, sign a petition, write to your MP, and it's like, well, okay, but I wouldn't have the vote. You wouldn't have the vote, Rachel, if
if the suffragettes,
if it wasn't for the direct action.
No. But this happened when the Colston statue went in the harbour a year or two ago, didn't it, in Bristol? Yes. And loads of people, exactly. I cheered from Nottingham, and loads of people go, oh well, it wasn't right. The statue was, but they should have gone about it the right way. It wasn't right to pull it down and put it in the harbour like that. But activist groups had been going about it the right way for donkey's years. They've been
going on.
It's been going for years and years and years and years, and nothing had fucking happened. So they pulled it down and they chucked it in the harbour, and now the fucking thing is gone and it's in a museum where it belongs. So doing things the right way gets you nowhere a lot of the time. Sometimes you do have to take matters into your own hands and just get the job done.
Well,
I mean, to get change, almost always.
Yeah.
Well, that's why that's why they say this is the right way to do it, because you, again, pissing in the wind. It's
exactly. It takes all your energy.
If you do it that way, you can have a march around the town. You can carry your placards. Someone can bring a sound system, and then you can all go home afterwards.
But what I will say about A to B marches is that sometimes an A to B march can be an introduction into more meaningful activism for people. So, I mean, I was involved in activism as a teenager, but then I had children and I got married, and I lived a much more conventional life for a few years, and it wasn't
same.
until we had that change of government in 2010 that I got all fired up again. I need to do something, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't have contacts. I wasn't involved in activist communities, and I went on an A to B march, and that is where I met people that got me back into direct action and more kind of edgy activism. And that's when I started getting involved with UK Uncut and doing lots of other things, because I met people doing that opened that door to me.
And watching the students at the end of 2010 as well was like, oh my God, they just gave me this just whole new lease of hope, because I mean, you know, the same. I mean, I had, you know, my youngest was 5 then. And you had people going mental about them then, and it's like, no, they've just smashed up Tory HQ. This is amazing.
Absolutely.
You know, when the youth are getting on board and going, no, we've had enough of this. You're ripping us off. You're screwing us over. We're not having it. You know, that was really inspiring. And then I didn't march on the big anti-cuts march in the following March in 2011.
No.
But I did go to London, and I was playing, you know, busking and all the rest of it. And I ended up in, it's when the Ritz and all that got smashed up and stuff.
It's when the UK Uncut occupied Fortnum and Mason.
May or may not have been around then.
Yeah, I mean, I
was there. I didn't
myself.
March, but I was with UK Uncut in Oxford Circus for the day, and then down at Fortnum and Mason. So yeah, I was. And then I was.
There was a black bloc that split off that day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I saw the black bloc, and I was like, hey, and I saw all the paint splattered everywhere, and I heard about the Ritz and stuff, but I was in Trafalgar Square, excuse me, in the evening, and there were fires burning, and you know, it was a real solidarity thing. And then all of a sudden I could see the fucking TSGs coming. Went to grab some of my mates out of the area where you like to get kettled, and ended up getting my head battered and had temporary brain damage, and it was a real life changer. My kids had to, I couldn't look after my kids properly, so I had to ask their dad if he'd look after them for a bit, and then it took me a year to recover. They settled. It was massive. And I decided then I was never going on the front line again. So then I started legal observing, and then someone who trained legal observers trained me how to train legal observers, and kind of got involved that way, and then stayed away from the more frontline stuff since, and pushed. Something else was already going then, but that became much more of a, you know, my band was kind of starting then as well, so that became my outlet for gobbing off about it all, rather than going and getting battered, because you can't beat a 3 deep load of dead-eyed wankers with shields and batons.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
power, so much power.
So, you know, I watched a young girl in there get absolutely fucking, you couldn't do anything. You know, blood everywhere. It was awful.
So I didn't know you back then, but I was in the same place at the same time. I was at Trafalgar Square that night.
Right.
And we also saw them descend. We got out. We just disappeared ourselves, and we did manage to get out. We were lucky. We avoided being kettled. We've been kettled earlier in the day on a couple of occasions. So I was with UK Uncut, who their organising was incredible. So they had people on bikes with different coloured flags, and everybody was given a card with a colour on, and you followed the bike with your colour flag, and they took people basically around London, and the police didn't know who to follow. There were so many groups, so several groups ended up getting into Fortnum and Mason. My group got there just before the police managed to shut it all down. So we were like a cat's whisker away from being the group in Fortnum and Mason. I'm glad that we weren't. That case went on for donkey's years.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
you've had a case, haven't you? You had a successful case against the police.
Against Nottinghamshire Police, yeah. They arrested me on a demo about a year later in Nottingham. I mean, it was nothing like as traumatic as the Fortnum and Mason one, because my prosecution ended up being dropped after I'd been to court to enter a not guilty plea. It was dropped by the CPS, but I was basically arrested for not following a public order direction, where I'd asked for clarification. They told me that I needed to stand a certain distance away from a shop, and I'd asked them to clarify the direction, and they arrested me for not conforming. So it was, I mean, that was in the December, and it was dropped by the March. So that in itself wasn't traumatic. But then I was asked if I wanted to take civil action against Nottinghamshire police. And I said, yes, absolutely, I do. Because I considered that sort of thing to be activism as well, you know, to stand up to their political arrest strategies.
Yeah.
And that case against Nottinghamshire police came to court last year. So I was arrested in 2011.
Wow.
10 years.
10 years, well, almost 10 years it took for my civil action to come to fruition, and I won.
Yeah.
So there were 4 counts against Nottinghamshire police. There was unlawful arrest, there was assault, there was breach of section something or other of the Human Rights Act, which is around right to protest, and there was malicious prosecution. And I won on everything except malicious prosecution, which is where you have to have really strong evidence that there's been some kind of big conspiracy within the police force, and hardly anybody ever wins Malcross.
No.
So the rest of it I won, and I was really pleased, and it was incredible really to see. My barrister was amazing. He was the same guy that fought and won the case for pregnant people in Northern Ireland to be able to access abortion. And I had something of a crush on him because he was just like dynamite. He was incredible in court. And seeing him making the copper that arrested me and his inspector and all these people that had told dreadful lies about me, actually making them squirm on the witness stand, it was a beautiful thing. Yeah, it was great. Happy day.
Yeah, fair play.
Yeah, but it, you know, like you were saying, holding them to account in court is activism itself. You know, a long 10-year drawn out.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, glad you're doing so well after a violent attack, Gail. Yeah, absolutely.
It took a while. I mean, it was life-changing. It was, not good. And the trouble is, there wasn't a case because, well, there was a solicitor who was willing to take it on, but it was so complex because the first thing that hit my head was a crowd barrier that protesters had thrown at the police, and it bounced off the back of my head. The police saw that. They used their shields and their batons because it's like, are you going to prove it was us? You know?
Yeah.
It was. It was a big one. But yeah, spy cops.
Yeah, this is awful.
But the fact that they've gone for it and
that it's being held up now,
exposing it for what it is. But the fact that it happened was just, I mean, relationships and babies and
there are babies and people now exist that because of that deception. I mean, that's such a massive violation of trust. It's abusive and awful.
But they're being held to account.
Yeah,
you know, and it's been because I know some of the people that were fighting against the police about it and taking it to court and stuff, and to see it as another success story in holding them to account. But shouldn't have to be that way, should it?
No. I mean, that whole thing planted such mistrust amongst activist communities as well, didn't it? I mean, we had one here in Nottingham, Mark Kennedy or Mark Stone, depending on which version of him you want to talk about. And he kind of installed it. It was kind of before my time. It was when I was still being a respectable mum. So I wasn't around really for all that. But he really installed himself at the CMAC Centre here in Nottingham and got involved with the environmental protesters. And, there were people that considered him to be their closest friend, and he was involved with people's families and really spending time with their children and within their communities, and people trusted him. And after that all came to light, it made it very, very difficult within activist groups to kind of trust each other.
Of course.
I mean, there was somebody that got involved with our UK Uncut group here in Nottingham, and I'd never met him before. I mean, he's one of my closest mates now, but when he first got involved with the group, because he still is a really good speaker. He's really charismatic. He gets people riled up, and he's a great guy. Do anything for anybody. And it just seemed that he was so too good to be true. I thought for quite a while he might be a plant, and he's not. He's like I say, I've known him over 10 years now, and he's great. But we were all kind of looking at each other with a side eye if anybody new got involved in the group.
Of course, and the way they did it, where they were all over the country.
Oh yeah,
all over the UK, and it all started to leak out at the same time, and it kind of makes you wonder if it wasn't leaked as part of the long-term tactics to then nail bomb through activist groups that were actually, because I know that South Wales anarchists, Cardiff anarchists and stuff, they were hit as well. And it kind of splintered a lot of what they were doing, as it did with all of the activist groups.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you're engaged in direct action that's really skirting around the edges of legality a lot of the time, and you're engaged in direct actions that can be quite risky, you've got to be in a group that is really tight. You've got to be in a group that you know has got your back and that really trusts each other. So anything that fragments that trust is going to be destructive to that group.
Of course.
And I think, the same thoughts occurred to me, Gail. I think you're absolutely right. I think part of that tactic wasn't just to spy on us, it was also to fracture us.
Of course.
Yeah, really absolutely. Pulls the rug out and causes, if you want to break down any group, get them questioning each other, questioning the person next to them and looking,
plant those seeds,
looking at everyone with suspicion.
Yeah.
And it's devastating, or can be.
Yeah,
it is. But on a positive, moving on to positive things, you don't have to get involved on the ground with black ops and breaking the law and locking yourself on and super gluing yourself to things, or getting involved in, the naughtier end. There are lots of things that you can do just as a normal everyday human being that make a difference, right?
You're saying you're not normal?
For me,
normality's overrated, Matt.
I don't even know what normal means, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. So
you don't have to take risks where, I know that Extinction Rebellion kind of really pushed the getting arrested thing. That didn't sit comfortable with me. It's fine to do that to people who have already been arrested and have some idea of what that's about and stuff. But young people who want to do, feel passionate about the environment and have been inspired by Greta Thunberg and things like that. I don't think there was enough explanation about the fact that, if you get this mark on your record, you're never going to have a career as a nurse or whatever, or as a teacher or
being able to put yourself out there to essentially get arrested is a really privileged position to be in, and it's one that a lot of people can't risk. Can you imagine being trans or an immigrant or somebody who is otherwise marginalised being asked to put themselves in a position where they're intentionally going to be arrested? That's really dangerous.
I think it's definitely flawed. With getting the right people to do it, who have the savvy and have a history of activism, maybe have been arrested before, don't have a career that it's going to go to shit, where they might lose their home or their family or anything else. And that's, I kind of understand the bones of the tactic. I didn't like, but that doesn't mean you can't get involved with the gentler stuff that XR do, like having funerals on the street and stuff like that. Always, if you do get involved in an activist movement or group, you are still allowed your boundaries and you are still allowed to say no, and you should not be outcast for that. You should not receive any vitriol or any negative treatment for saying this is as far as I will go, and if you change your mind on the day and you've said before, I'll do that, and you go, and unless you're into some major ops and it's going to blow everything out the water. But if you're all going into town and it's like, I'll go and super glue myself to that door, and then you go, actually, I don't want to do that.
That should be absolutely okay.
I'm not as up for that as I thought I was. Absolutely.
You could look out for each other in group. One of our things within our
yourself.
UK,
you have to look after yourself.
Sure. One of our things within our UK Uncut group in Nottingham was that there was a job for everybody. If you didn't want to go and occupy whatever bank or shop or whatever we were going, if you could hand out leaflets outside, or if you couldn't get into town, we always need stuff posting on social media. And we always legal observers, absolutely. There was a job for everybody, regardless of what level of risk they were willing to take. And like you say, being able to change your mind in that moment and go, actually, this feels a little bit spicy today. I don't really feel comfortable doing this. We'll do something different then. There's multiple things that can be done.
Really important.
It's not the army. You're not under orders.
No, God, no, absolutely.
No. And, even simple things like sharing a Facebook event, talking to people that messaging them who live in that area. Did you know this is going on? Yeah, stuff like, I mean, isn't there something coming up in Nottingham this weekend?
On Sunday, yeah. There's
The trans...
Smooth segue.
Yeah, nicely done, Gail. Yeah, there's a group showing a film called Adult Human Female, which is very anti-trans. So our local trans activist group are having a counter demo for that on Sunday at 11:30. Location as yet unknown, but yeah, it's on social media.
It's, you know, it's just sharing those things.
Yeah, that's it. Even if you can't go, yeah, tell people about it, talk about it, spread the word.
Yeah, I mean, when with the whole, we were talking about the workfare thing before we came on live and stuff. I mean, we had a blog and we were, you know, we had it in English and Welsh, and we were outside Tesco's in Cardiff handing these flyers out. But also before that, we had the flyers in English and in Welsh and in both up that you could just download and print and hand out wherever you were and go on, you know, things like that are really helpful as well. So if you are in an area, have a look to see what blogs and websites and stuff are, and you know, if you've got some ink in your printer, print out some flyers and kind of hand out that's what's going on. But spreading the word is just as important.
Most libraries will allow you to print out a small amount for free as well.
Yeah, they will.
If that's your thing.
And I mean, word of mouth is powerful. You're not going to end up with a tag on, oh god, the tag thing. You're not going to end up with a tag on your ankle for sharing, unless Sunak's probably got shares in or what's the twatties on the jungle thing at the moment. They probably bought shares in a tagging company. So now if you've been at a protest in the last 5 years, been at a protest in the last 5 years, they can put a tag on you.
Yeah, this new stuff that's coming in with is it the policing bill? It's absolute. It's totalitarianism. It's terrifying.
It's the same fucking thing. It's,
well, the policing bill really is terrifying. It's absolutely petrifying, really.
It really is, but that is supposed to be, isn't it? That's the whole point of it. They want to suppress any kind of protest, however.
And they use the Bristol protesters against the bill as an example. I mean, the sentences they got after there's been video out there where you can see the police are goading them and pushing them first, and they hit back. And we've all been at protests when you know what it's like when the atmosphere goes boom and you just go fucking boom, like, you know. And these are kids, lots of them. But you saw those, especially some of those young women. I've seen the videos of them sitting down, doing nothing but a sit-down protest, and the police have just gone in at them.
Yeah,
and now they're in prison because.
Well, I mean, that happened at the.
We've got to scare you away from protesting because we really are fucking you over now, and we don't want you to stop us.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that happen at the vigil for Sarah Everard as well, though, didn't we? Yeah. You know, those women that got battered by the police, and they were literally sitting on the ground and they were mourning, and the police just launched into them, and then they were the ones that were the bad guys. It's unbelievable.
Sorry, Mac.
It's what it's the police and crime bill. It's what it's prefacing that worries me. You know, they haven't brought it in for shits and giggles. They've always been able to break up protests really easily. You know, they can storm in with mounted officers and
I mean, other public order acts they can use. They don't need any more legislation.
No, and it does make me wonder. You know, what are they? What are they bringing in next? You know, why they've done it?
Yeah, well, they, like you say, they've got a reason, haven't they? They know what they're doing. Well, they're dismantling human rights, aren't they? They're dismantling the Human Rights Act now that we're out of the EU, and they'll be chipping away at that piece by piece. You look at the industrial action that's happening in the UK at the moment with the RMT and CWU, and now the nurses are going out on strike, and civil servants are going out on strike as well. So as industrial action grows and this kind of mass protest builds on all levels, they want to have as many tools in their toolbox as they can possibly have to break this up and to stop it happening, to stop any kind of uprising.
Yeah. The Sarah Everard thing made me want to get back on the front line. I mean, my kids are grown up now, you know. We have to do something. People are going to die this winter, especially if it gets cold. There's certainly going to, be a lot more malnourished people, talking about in the UK than there have been. and we're not allowed to go out there. And I mean, I know there have been, I know people that are out on the protests against the cost of living crisis, greedy bastard crisis. That's what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's completely mislabeled, as if it's somehow just something that's happening, and it's all COVID and Russia's fault, and probably Jeremy Corbyn's as well.
Yeah,
throw him into the mix.
Man.
Oh my God, yeah, no, but it must be Jeremy Corbyn's fault,
Must be Jeremy Corbyn.
We wouldn't be in this situation now if he'd have got in as Prime Minister. But that's for another day. I think we should definitely ask him to come on and do a show with us. He does brilliant Boris impressions.
He's very funny, isn't he? He's a very funny man.
Yeah, but it's I mean, even like you said earlier, even changing your diet is a protest. Boycotting certain things, Nestle or Primark or cocaine or there's all sorts of things. Well,
you're right. I mean, when you were talking earlier about these things that give us guilt, that we do.
Oh, drugs always did that, especially the coke.
Yeah, I'm quite pleased I had to give it up in the end. But I had maybe for about 30 seconds after I bought each bag, I'd have there was a little bit of guilt going on there about where, because you buy coke and you've got blood on your hands. All sorts from from farmers creating it to.
But it's most
the
things.
Victims of gangs and gangsters.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some success stories, shall we?
Success stories, go. Yeah.
The radio silence.
No, I mean, I've got some. I just seem to be doing a lot of the talking.
Well, I mean, I talked about
you've got the bigger picture up there on the screen, you see.
Yeah, you're in charge, Gail. I talked about UK Uncut, and what UK Uncut was aiming to do was not to get Vodafone or Topshop or whatever paying their tax, because they knew that was an impossible task. Their aim was to bring it into the public domain, get people talking about why our service is being cut because there's no money. However, these ultra rich mates of the Tories are allowed to not pay their due. And as a result of the protest that UK Uncut took across the country, people did start talking about it. And there were columns in the national newspapers about tax avoidance. Tax avoidance became part of the national discussion. And that situation hasn't been solved, but the hypocrisy of the people letting it happen has definitely been highlighted. So I definitely take that as a success.
I think a lot of activism is it stops things getting worse, or it stops things getting as bad as they could. And I think people only, they say, well, that didn't make a difference. They still weren't paying their tax, but they're probably getting away with less now, And I feel like a lot of the time, all I'm doing with what I do is stopping things getting worse. But I do have some success stories. I was very involved with Frack Off Our Forest, to the point of going to the House of Lords.
We know about that. Songs about that.
And also meeting the frackers at Bamfurlong in the Police Special Operations Unit, and being nose to nose with the guy with the licence, saying, I will legally spunk every last penny of your contingency, and you need to stop saying when you come to the forest to frack it, because that's not happening. So please stop saying when, blah, blah. And, there was an old boy that used to go and survey the mines and stuff, who had photos of film stars walking down with cigarettes. So it's like, none of the gas that you think is here is here. It's a big bowl. It disappeared, a long time ago. But we really put the pressure on. We presented our case in the House of Lords in a private meeting with Lord Abergavenny. We faced off the guy with the licence, and they backed off, and we won. I mean, I know that Liz Truss, in a very brief career as Thatcher's shadow.
I forgot about her.
I didn't, because in her very brief time, she did some awful damage. One of the things was to lift the ban on fracking in the UK.
You're right.
Which, wasn't all right, actually. Another success, which is an ongoing one, is wabbling on about the gender imbalance on UK stages.
Yes.
And I had a phone conversation the other day with someone who does the booking for quite a large festival. And saying that they were aiming for 50-50. They weren't sure they were going to get there, but they're really aiming for it, and they're doing their utmost, and it'll probably be 60-40 or something. But was really interested in the reasons that the gender imbalance exists, and I've had other people, obviously. So I mean, Skunk and Nancy played Bearded Theory because I pointed it out to Rich, who then owned it, and he was like, I hadn't even thought about it, if I'm honest. And that's largely what I got back. Some people will only, it's about who's good, and yeah, it is about who's good. But when there's no opportunity for women, then unless they haven't got many clothes on and they're very pretty and they sing auto-tune pop songs or whatever, it's a very different. It's. I mean, there was a bloke at our gig. There was a bloke at our gig in one of our gigs recently, and I was talking about social responsibility and collective responsibility. Oh, it doesn't work, didn't work, and I'm a lefty and it didn't work with Thatcher and all the rest of it. And it's like, look, mate, shut up. And tried to reason, couldn't reason. He was drunk. And then afterwards, he said to one of our mates who was in the crowd, oh, they should get rid of those 2 old ones and just keep the 2 young ones in that band. And it's like,
wow,
you fucking dick. But who would ever say that about a male band? Ever? Why would no one would ever say that about a male band?
No.
So, women have a shelf life on a stage because if we're not pretty, we're not gorgeous. And
that's where our value is, isn't it?
Then we absolutely should not be on a stage, right? But that's a big part of it. And it's bollocks. It's absolutely bollocks. But, there's ingrained sexism. There's playing it safe and feeding what you think an audience wants, because an audience only wants what it sees. It's like the bean analogy. It's lack of provision for childcare. It's young women not wanting to walk home or leave a venue and walk 5 minutes to their car after playing a gig. Someone, they might have taken someone's eye playing. There might be someone intimidating the audience, So it's like, get your sound engineer to park up the road on that night because they've got women playing, let them have the parking space outside. Or the bar manager or whatever. But there's
like one of your doormen to walk them to their car. There's always something that can be done to make people feel safer.
And just general sexism, but also, I mean, I deal with a lot of musicians, and I'm not saying all men.
You can if you want.
No, because it's not all men. Actually,
it's not all men.
But
no, but
the ego.
I don't like hearing that come back when you say, no, men,
not all men. Not all men. Yeah. Okay, so not all of the male musicians that I book are completely obsessed with their own ego.
Yeah.
Very few of the women that I book are remotely obsessed with their own ego. They're not doing it for that. They're doing it because they love it, or they've got something to say. You do see that there's a lot of the women that do break through have got something to say. They're not just singing about boys, and flowers. But so the more women like me and Cassie Fox from Loud Women and others fight to make this a thing of the past, the more those fucking little dicked egos are going, no, we need to hold these stages, rather than going, how many women are on this lineup you're booking us for then?
Yeah.
Is the gender balanced?
Yeah.
Because they're so scared of losing their spots. I mean, some of the men on our scene have called me sexist for putting on Sister Fest and for ranting about this kind of thing as well. Because all they see is that their ego's not going to get fed on that stage.
Yeah.
How
certainly doesn't apply to all of them, but it's definitely there's quite an element, scared of missing out.
What's their reasoning for calling you sexist for running Sister Fest?
Because there's one festival out of the hundreds and hundreds that exist that they can't play at.
Because I only had one token boy band.
Yeah.
Which is just holding a mirror up to the fact that so many lineups, and I still see them go up now on the grassroots. There's no fucking excuse for it.
No, there isn't.
If you have to work a bit harder to find women who are available, because we have childcare to do and that. Because if a male musician is a family man and he goes out to play, mum's looking after the kids. If mum's going out, the rhetoric is the man is babysitting.
Yeah, yeah, he's doing her a favour. Yeah,
that's
another
just blanket rhetoric. Men don't babysit their own fucking children.
Nobody babysits their own children.
That's always irritated me.
The thing is, though, Gail, women like you can absolutely work their asses off doing that kind of activism and get all the shite that comes back at you for it.
Oh, the hate campaigns and everything.
And, I've no doubt that that you have successes all the time because I see it and I can see it changing. But how much quicker and easier would it be if male musicians refused to play on lineups that weren't balanced? If they just said, not playing that, it's not balanced, it would change like that. It would change.
But they're not going to do that because they're already feeling threatened.
No, exactly.
We're losing a gig already. What's really powerful, what would be really powerful, real simple activism. If you're a music lover, stop buying fucking tickets for all male lineups.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like a pub that's got 2 or 3 acts on.
No, but big events.
For the years,
over
the year or whatever, but an all day or a weekend event,
if
they haven't got at least 40% women on their lineup,
then just don't go.
Tell the promoter you are not buying tickets for it, and tell them why, and don't go. Go to the balanced lineups, because that's real simple activism, and it's really important.
Yeah,
really important. I mean, I see it now. It's the same. I mean, our end of season party, I kind of mix it up with. Half is acts that we always book because they're our friends who want to come and party. And I try and mix up the other half and kind of balance it out. One year you might see a new band on all of my stages, and then the following years you'll see them on one of them or whatever, and I try and mix it up. But stop going to see the same fucking bands and buying the same merch that the same bands are putting out every fucking 2 weeks, and just spread it about. Help create opportunity for fucking women. If you've got a mother or you've got daughters or you've got a partner or you've got nieces or aunties or friends or whatever, who are interested in music, might only sit and play in their bedroom. A lot of that is because what the fuck's the point in trying to put yourself out there? Because you can't get bookings because people largely book males.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking about women as well, I'm talking about trans women because they're women as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And non-binary.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not calling non-binary people women before anyone jumps on me, but other genders that aren't fucking male, really. It's just that's a bit more of a
And at the end of the day, the only people that, well, not the only people, but the people who are going to benefit from that aren't just the artists, it's the audience as well.
And the scene will thrive.
You're
going to thrive.
Chances are you're going to get better gigs, you're going to get more diverse gigs, you're going to see people who perhaps find new bands or artists
more
that perhaps
venues.
You wouldn't have discovered otherwise.
More venues will be able to hold on. I'm seeing almost every week now of really nice venues closing down or having to crowdfund because they're at risk of closing down. Now, if we made that space, there would be more musicians to go out there. People would have an appetite for a variety instead of just a fucking, that's my favourite band, I'm going to go and see them 20 times this week. It would help those venues survive as well. So it's not just about, I'm a fucking woman. I mean, we get gigs. I rarely apply for gigs. We get offered gigs. We get offered nice gigs. I'm sure occasionally we get offered gigs because I'm gobbing off about this and they think, well, if we book them,
I'm very quiet.
I'm always like, so what are the women you got on the lineup then?
Yes.
So, or let's have a look to see how many women you're booking over the year if you're a venue, because I ain't being your fucking token, man. That's not how it works. Been there and done that years ago before the penny dropped. And it's like, hang on a minute, where's all the other women? Yeah. Especially when Muddy Summers were mostly male, it's, here's that. I haven't got my fucking glasses on and they're in the kitchen.
Good evening, Gail. Taking a break from my bases to listen in. Well worth it.
Oh, hello. What's the name?
Uncommon Sense.
And then somebody else is saying hello to us, but I don't know who they are. But hello back to you.
Thanks for joining us. We're just we're at the moment we're talking about positive activism, but the good results.
I want to tell
successes.
Sorry, go on, Matt.
Other success, animal rights. With the fox hunting, with the relentless activities of the SABs. There are fox hunts folding. Almost every year there are more and more of these old ancient traditional hunts disappearing.
Yes, yeah.
The SABs are doing an incredible job. Sometimes quite a dangerous job.
Oh, incredibly so.
And they're winning. They really are winning.
I met who used to be the wildlife copper in the forest in Tesco's the other day, of all places. He went, Gail, and
you say I can't talk to a policeman in public.
No, well,
he's not to think about.
He's not a copper anymore, but he was, as a wildlife unit copper, absolutely brilliant. Now he went from being out in the field to being put on the desk because he took the hunt to court.
Wow!
He put a case together. I don't know what's happened to your screen, Rachel.
Oh,
you've gone. I don't know what the fuck that is.
Wow! I think it's from your vape. It'll clear up in a minute. It did it earlier.
Oh.
You look like you're in a cloud.
Aim it elsewhere. I like to retain an air of mystery.
But yeah, so he put a case together to take the hunt to court, and he spent the last 6 months of his career sat on a desk, and now he's retired. But so yeah, I thought that was pretty fucking cool, actually.
Quite brave, actually, because they've got friends in high places in the police force, haven't they? These hunts.
Well, that's why he ended up on the desk until he had to retire. But yeah, there definitely has been some animal rights successes, some faux pas as well, like releasing mink and things.
That was some years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah.
We had quite a nice and incredibly funny success against a fascist group a few years ago here in Nottingham. So it's one of these boneheads.
Mental, sorry.
Is it still there? It's not. That's not my vape. Then I don't know what it is.
No, I just thought you might have fogged up the lens.
No,
you pressed an effect or something. I think
I've not pressed anything.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Now you've got a different background. You're playing with your backgrounds.
I've not. Honestly, I've not touched anything.
No, it's just the white balance changed on it. There you go. You're back. You're normal again now.
I wiped my camera. Maybe it had a bit of muck on it or something.
Yeah, I think it's condensation off your vape.
Behave, Gail.
Cream cheese, is it? Can you get vegan cream cheese?
Oh, yuck. Anyway. Oh, you've made me go all giggly, and I've forgotten what one. Oh no, we had an isolated victory against one of these bonehead splinter groups from the EDL. They were having a march in Nottingham, and they'd invited some high-profile fascist whose name completely escapes me now to come and talk at their demo. So obviously the local anti-fascist groups had organised a counter demo, and we found out that the meeting spot that they'd picked was in a Wetherspoons, which was down like an alley in Nottingham, which just seemed like the stupidest thing to plan. So we did what any vaguely intelligent group of people would do, and we put one group of us at one end of the alley and another group of us at the other end of the alley, and they never got out of the alley, and they ended up standing in an alley outside of Wetherspoons for several hours until the police commandeered some buses and put them on buses back to the railway station. So that was quite good fun, and definitely a success. Because they didn't get to march and they didn't get to speak to anybody other than each other. And I think the fact that it was utterly hilarious made it even more of a success, because sometimes I think these things can drain you, they can, and especially when you're dealing with fascists, it can be terrifying. And when you have those wins that just make you laugh, it was proper belly laugh situation. It raises your spirits, and it gives you confidence, and it gives you enthusiasm where sometimes it can be difficult to retain those things.
I think the laughing at the EDL pages on Facebook and the websites and stuff really helped the combating of them, and for people to see them for what they were rather than getting sucked in by their rhetoric. There wasn't enough of that with what were they called? Britain First.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole laughing at like your street fascists.
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
Well, our group, this group that we counter-demoed on that occasion, were called the Not Casual Infidels. And I know, which is hilarious in itself. But there was a Facebook page set up parodying them called the Not Casual Infidels. And that entire Facebook page was made up of memes of them being put on buses and being trapped in places and just mocking everything that they did.
Taking their country back one Weatherspoons at a time.
Just one Weatherspoons, because they couldn't get to any others.
Well, I was admin on a couple of the anti-EDL pages, but one of them was the EDL graduates division. And it got taken down in the end. Then we tried it again, but it didn't work. But I think you can baffle people like that and have a good laugh, and I think that's much better than violence. Violence is a last resort. I don't like violence. It definitely has its place, but I don't like it.
No.
It's not something that does anything.
I do like watching videos on YouTube of Nazis getting punched.
Actually.
I'm feeling a bit frustrated today. What shall I type into YouTube? Nazis getting punched.
I don't want to dismiss violence as a tactic, because sometimes it's necessary.
No, not me.
I think if there are other ways of doing things, then I'd always go for the other ways of doing things.
It is a case of speaking a language that people will understand. If you think if you can change someone's mind by having a conversation with them, do it. If they're dangerous individuals, if they're far right or anything like that, then
I think
if you can't have a conversation, then you have to look at other ways to sort things out.
I think using humour as a tactic, though, and making people ridiculous.
That's very good.
Joe likes it. Joe Lifey does it.
I love him.
He does it very well.
He does it really, really well. And he's an activist,
Yes, he certainly is.
That's how he's known, but he's definitely an activist.
Activism and comedian, Mark Thomas, absolutely. Activism and comedy goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. I think, I think it's really helpful, because we all like to laugh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and sometimes making a point about serious subjects, if you're constantly bombarded with how shit everything is and the cold bare facts of it all, adding a little humour in that to get a message out, it's the same principle, I guess, as putting with folk music, of protest music.
Yes, yeah.
Putting a message in your song. The message itself might be quite dark, about a dark subject, but wrap it up in comedy or in a good song.
And that's the whole point, isn't it? Activism doesn't have to be waving placards or locking onto something or getting arrested. Activism can be comedy, it can be music, it can be joyous.
And conversation is really important.
Connection.
Like calling something out, you can do really gently by asking, like, if someone's coming out with some shit about Muslims or whatever in the pub, you can gently ask them why they think that, and engage, because what's important about engaging in social environments, and also to a point on Facebook, does your fucking head in, is the other people listening or the other people reading who aren't sure, and if they only see that one view, and they don't see anyone opposing it, then it's really easy for someone tells a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. It's that kind of, you hear something enough,
isn't it?
Then that's what you believe. So it's important.
And putting those comments on Facebook, it helps. There may be someone on there that's the original post really affected, and by speaking out against that post, you've then
offered solidarity.
That person who might have felt isolated, because of it, knows that there's someone that has their back.
Yeah, but it's so, that is so important when you see that stuff, and you can't spend all day every day doing it. But if it's someone especially if it's someone you know who's a mate or something, and go, hang on a minute, mate. How did you come? I mean, when really all I want to rage is fuck off, you cunt. That's fucking horrible. But that's not the way to get through to people.
No.
You know, you have to try and articulate and give reasoned argument. And go, well, no, actually, that's not true because of this. And if you can find links, especially if they're peer reviewed, you know, I mean, I am a bit of a fucker going in on comments on other people's stuff and going, oh, have you got a peer reviewed link for that, please? You know,
yeah, show your sources.
And you know, yeah, quite often sources are like with the whole vaccine thing. You know,
some
the
bloke on a
sources
YouTube video.
On a YouTube video that is getting money every time somebody watches that video.
I'd just like to point out some YouTube videos are factual and worthwhile.
Yeah, of course, obviously.
Well, like the Nazis ones.
But we're not pretending to be a source for anything, you know. So
no,
we're having a conversation about activism and you know, and sometimes we have really interesting guests on, and that's what we're doing. But yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you know, punching Nazi videos are much more entertaining.
I think that's just therapy.
It is. It really is. If I need cheering up, seeing, you know, there's some great ones out there. I urge everybody to, after this show, to go and look at Nazis being punched. Some great compilations as well.
Calling people out, even just on social media, is activism.
Yeah.
You know, apathy is the enemy of all of us. Just turning blind eyes to stuff. Oh yeah, but you know, he's all right, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna just ignore that. I'm gonna ignore that really problematic thing.
It's not.
We should all be activists, really. You know, activists aren't people going around in black balaclavas and doing really edgy things. Activism should be an everyday activity. But
there's a flip side to it, you know. I mean, I don't want to bring TERFs up in every fucking episode.
We're going to.
Why not?
But and the EDL, we're activists, you know. Not all activism is good. Not all activism is wholesome.
Very true.
Your activism should be based on making the world have more, you know, be a place of equity, and equality and peace
safety
and freedom and to be safe. You know, if your activism makes another group of people unsafe, unless they're fascists, obviously.
Obviously. All fascists should be unsafe.
Then, you know, you need to at least be very careful with your tactics. But, you know, going back to the EDL, they were, and, you know, the TERFs, very much the same rhetoric. Incels. I mean, incels consider themselves to be activists, to put women back in their place as sexual objects. You know, but all these people, that it all roots in that same white supremacist poison.
Yeah.
So whenever you are in anything that's going against people being gay or trans or brown or black or having tits or whatever, then you are supporting white supremacy.
Yeah.
And actively supporting white supremacy.
Well, we've seen that with the TERFs as well, haven't we? You know, they've been standing shoulder to shoulder with actual verified white supremacists. I mean, Posey Parker has been really pally with white supremacists in the US. And I've seen, I mean, I have seen other TERFs calling her out on that, to be fair, but I've seen far more TERFs excusing it and, you know, doing the whole just because we agree on one thing doesn't mean we agree on everything kind of spiel. So it's okay to be pally with fascists, but only on the bits of fascism that you share with them. I don't really understand their argument. It seems bizarre to me. But
that's like, oh well, you know, she might use the same shampoo as you, so she must be all right, really.
I'm only fascist every other Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, you know, I'm focused on this particular part of fascism. I don't like all of it.
Don't want death camps.
You know?
Diet fascism.
Oh, fucking death camps. You know, bearing in mind the British invented fucking death camps, concentration camps, like, you know. That whole glossing over British history is it's a very clever tactic of the ruling class is, like as is all of this shit that we're having to fight. And activism at the moment really is, if you have got a little bit of extra cash through this awful winter, this awful next few months, and any of your friends are struggling, even if you help them out with a loaf of bread a week or something.
Yeah. Afford a bit.
You know, we can't go, oh, well, they keep saying they're handing out this, that, and the other, and they're putting 60 quid on people's meters and stuff. 60 quid is 2 weeks of gas for me. But like it is for most people, if they want to not be freezing cold, you know, and they want to cook food, and I'm trying not to mention air fryers because I've just got one. I'm such a striving middle class hole. Actually,
air fry wanker.
It's because I've got a lodger as well, and it will just make it a lot cheaper over winter to keep us warm and fed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just we have to look after each other right now. Social responsibility and collective responsibility against those fuckers, making sure that lots of us don't die of malnutrition and hypothermia. That's activism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you might be all right, but do you know what? If you drink one less bottle of nice wine a week, you can really help all your neighbours or your friends out.
The more we look after each other, you know, and we can rely on each other, the less that we have to rely on them.
Of course. And if you're middle class, mate, if we all die, you're going to be down where we're
you're next in line.
So I saw a lot of this happening at the start of the first lockdown in the UK with COVID. I saw, and it was really quite uplifting to see people in groups on Facebook looking out for each other and offering to take, you know, you can get Calpol in the shops because everybody was buying it just in case. And then somebody's kid got chicken pox and she couldn't get Calpol. And there were people saying, I've got some in my cupboard, I'll bring it round for you. People dropping around with bread for their neighbours. And all of that was happening. And it was really uplifting. But of course, it's all stopped now. But we might not be in the same level of crisis as we were with COVID, but we are still in crisis, and that should never stop. That should be standard. We should, like you say, we should be looking out for each other. If I've got 2 loaves of bread and my neighbour's got none, then they can have one of mine.
Absolutely.
And we should all be doing that all of the time, not just when there's some kind of concentrated, a short-term potentially crisis.
Yeah, sharing. Breaking bread, sharing food and stuff is
it's
really
civilization, isn't it? You know, social eating and sharing food. It is though. It's the foundation of what we should all be doing.
Community and communism aren't necessarily the same thing. You know, I'm not wearing brown for anyone that maybe wear it in school.
No, brown's a shit colour on me. I had to wear brown in the brownies, and it was dreadful. I mean, if we can wear purple.
Oh God!
The communists need their makeover. But you know, every civilization across time has participated in social eating and sharing of food, and it bonds people.
Yeah.
I mean, all these rich
landowners.
landowners.
It keeps people alive.
There's all these rich landowners. I'm not on about farmers who are, you know, I mean, much as I don't animal farming, I don't like it, you know, but they are as fucked over with their produce, like by the supermarkets and the conglomerates.
Oh yeah.
As everyone else gets fucked over. But I'm talking about these fucking rich cunts, you know, these
their country estates and
with their you know, their old money fucking handed over as a reward for killing some poor people or something.
Yeah.
We ought to be going and growing some fucking vegetables on their land, you know.
Let's do some guerrilla gardening
big time. You know, there's all sorts of things we can do, but now is the time. And it's always sad that things have to get to the point where it affects those that, had we started building these things years ago, you know, when some of us were first rattling, this is where it's going, you know, then everyone would be okay now.
We'd be in a very different place, wouldn't we?
You know, yeah, it has to. It's sad that it has to affect people individually, and we now are fucking lone worker bees, basically. You know, I mean, Thatcher had a lot to do with that.
The whole individualism over society thing. Yeah.
The I'm all right, Jack thing.
Greed is good.
I'm afraid lots of Jacks out there, you are not all right now. And you can't pick and choose either. Don't go, well, I'm not giving the brown man bread.
No.
Because I don't like brown men.
No.
You know? Let's just, let's start looking after each other because we're fucked otherwise. And then
that's the only thing that's going to bring us through. The only thing that is going to bring us through is if we can take care of each other.
Which actually, COVID, that's what happened with COVID. And like you say, it stopped. So the capabilities are there. But because this is about money and not about death,
but it equals death,
getting your favourite beans on the supermarket shelf, people are hanging on to what they've got really tightly.
Yeah.
And then it's those that put it away. You could be dead tomorrow. Stop it. If you've got 10 grand in the bank in savings for a rainy day, you know, and your neighbour is starving, you are a fucking cunt.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you fundamentally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't have much, but I'm chucking a couple of tenors out a month to a couple of mates I know are going to struggle through this. And then when they get to the point, like one of them's got a job now, so they don't need it. So I'll pass it on elsewhere, like, you know, and it's like, all right, it just means I'm smoking a little bit less a week, which is good for me as well.
Good for you,
you know, so it's and that's kind of mutual aid, isn't it? You know, mutual aid. And it don't think that you can only give something away if you're getting something equal back.
No.
But it doesn't work like that.
It's
and
not
then someone else has
transactional.
something you need that doesn't need anything that you've got. So don't make it transactional.
It's not transactional. It's not charity either. That's the important thing. It's not, I'm going to bestow my great wealth upon you poor people. You know, it's not charity. It is just holding each other up.
Yeah, I mean, the food banks are struggling. You know, I mean, giving to food banks, that's activism.
Yeah.
Volunteering at them, that's even more activism. But more and more people are in, you know, I mean, there's nurses, for fuck's sake, that are working all the hours nonsense, and they still cannot afford to feed their families.
Yeah,
and they're
fucking
using
ridiculous.
Food banks. This is the world that we're living in right now, and there are plenty of us that can do more, you know, and help.
I mean, anybody that lives in a largest town or city will have access to something that they can help at. There will be some group that does a food run that you can help out at, or that you can donate to, whether that's donating food or cash. You know, they always need people to go and serve up food to people. If you live in anything other than a tiny village, there will be some organisation that needs help from people.
Yeah. And if you live in a tiny village, there will almost certainly be social housing on it, or someone who inherited the house and has fuck all.
Yeah, absolutely. Check on neighbours. Knock on the door, ask if they're okay. You know, especially as it gets cold over winter.
And there's it's not like, oh, that milk's been out for 2 days. We don't have milk delivery anymore, so there aren't the telltale signs to look for lights going on and off.
Yeah,
especially with the elderly around you and people who live alone and stuff. You know, I think that's Christ, it's like the fucking 70s. So we haven't got the adverts on the telly, as far as I know. I don't have a telly. I haven't seen them go up on Facebook or whatever. Do you remember the hypothermia adverts?
I wasn't born in 78.
Sitting, dying in their armchairs because they're so cold because they couldn't afford.
I remember the sort of public service adverts. I can't remember that. I might remember some nuclear bomb ones, and there was the kid with the fishing rod who was electrocuting himself. And
Charlie said,
Charlie.
Look, love, he's waving at the sea. Yeah, there were all of those. But I mean, the hypothermia one really stood out with me.
We might not have those adverts, but we have got people like Martin Lewis going on the telly and saying, buy this electric blanket from Aldi because that will stop you freezing to death, which is basically the same thing, isn't it? You know, we've still got fears of people dying of
one of those bloody electric blankets, you know? If they could afford the electric to plug it in.
Yeah.
I read something the other day. On an average year recently, 10,000 people in the UK will die of poorly heated houses or non-heated houses.
And it's not just...
So God knows what that's going to be this year.
I mean, I put some up a few weeks ago and someone said, yeah, but we're going to have a mild winter because of global warming, and it's a mild winter predicted. If you're malnourished and you can't put your heating on, even if it's only 5 or 6 degrees, you're going to get poorly.
Can't withstand the cold.
You know?
And it's not just the cold either, it's housing conditions. So a house that isn't heated over the winter will develop mold. And there was a story in the news just a few days ago about that little boy who died because of black mold spores in their home. You know, so it's not necessarily people getting hypothermia, it's all the things that happen to your housing conditions when you're not adequately heated.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, if you happen to own your home and you're poor, which also happens, I mean, it's not just people in social housing that are poor. No. And a lot of them aren't, as it goes, but your pipes freeze.
Yeah, that's it. And you can't afford to do anything about it because you've got no landlord whose responsibility it is. And you might not have insurance if you're skint.
Yeah.
So
and there's all these different things.
And your sanitation's fucked. And
of course there'll be people who take the piss out of it and live the life of Riley off it by getting help from people. Fuck them. Let them have their life of Riley. If that's what ticks them over. Most of the people that need help won't ask.
No.
Most of the people who need help won't be taking the piss.
And it's better that a few people that don't need help get it, and then all the people that do need it also get it, than that people go without, you know.
And the thing is in the UK is it's unnecessary.
It is unnecessary.
You know, I mean, over COVID when they housed all the homeless people. Again, but you know, there was an awful lot housed.
Well, if they can,
you know, they can sort all this out.
You know,
they can sort all that out just like that.
Yeah, it's just about having the will to.
But then people queue in, really. People queue in to look at some old dead bird's coffin for 5 miles. Are getting toilets, you know, but in an area where people sleep on the streets, they're getting toilets, absolutely. They're getting water, they're getting blankets.
Yeah. Where is that for people that have no choice but to be there?
So how come
that's because the world was watching?
Of course, and because somebody who happened to be born into a family that she didn't dissolve died. You know,
when you said dissolve, then I had visions of vats of acid.
I'm melting.
Someone threw water at her.
I could not get my head around the people queuing for days to look at a box with a body in it.
It was a provision
At least they're
that they
all
had.
in one fucking place.
Why should they have that provision? They've all fucking got blankets. They could have taken with them. They can all go and get their own fucking water. Yeah. You know, why was that a provision just because some head of state died when people have their blankets taken off them in those areas who are homeless and have to live like that all the time?
Yeah, and have no choice.
What a society we live in. I hate it. You know? I fucking hate it. I hate being English. Fucking hate it. There's nothing to be proud of. If you're proud to be English, there's something. Yeah,
you just have a word with yourself.
You know, you really do need to have a word with
yourself. I mean, being proud of an accident at birth is weird anyway, though, regardless. It's
but I mean, this one in particular, Christ almighty. I'd have taken most others, you know, and I'm so aware of my privilege. I mean, I kind of hate that as well, but the price that comes with the privilege of being English is I'm just really uncomfortable with it, you know, and I know that's probably weird and I should be going, fuck you, you know. I'm sat in a warm house. All right, I've got my hat on, so I don't have to have the heating too high. You know, I'm sat in a warm house with my air fryer. You know, and
I'm getting a hot tub next.
We're gonna we're gonna have to have an update on your air fryer.
I make flapjacks. I haven't even tasted them because we're doing this.
The subject of next week's podcast will be Gail's air fryer recipes.
It really won't. Please tune in. That will all be all over my Facebook. You can like hide me from.
Gail's making flapjacks for everybody. So if you send in your address, she'll send them out.
She won't. No. She'll never get to the post office.
I'm waiting for a sourdough mother because in advance I'm ready to make bread for my neighbours, you know, and if we get snowed in here as well, you can't get anywhere and the shop runs out of stuff, and you know it wouldn't be the first time I've taken bread round to my neighbours. And so that's the idea. I'll make far too much big sourdough mother and I'll end up having to make loads of loaves anyway, so it's like this is the perfect time to do that.
I was taking to bread to people during lockdown, but it was because I turned into a sourdough wanker and bread making was my therapy, and I made far more than any one human could eat, so it's just like, please take my bread.
I bet
they were doing me a favour.
I could eat it.
But subconsciously,
I
you were
love
doing
bread.
something that you knew you were going to be sharing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And sharing
And you got
food is a
something
good
out of
thing.
it too. And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
okay to get something out of your activism.
Oh, well, I mean, one thing that we always
You
said
know?
when we were heavily involved in the UK Uncut stuff, was that this wasn't, what we were doing. It wasn't purely a kind of altruistic act. We got a lot out of it as well.
Of course.
And yeah,
do
some
it
of my
good. That's the nice thing. But
some of my
do-gooder, right? What a dirty word.
do-gooder. Some of my closest friends now are people that I met through doing that activism 10 or more years ago, because those bonds that you build are tight, and we had a lot of fun. We laughed an awful lot. We got very, very drunk at times. And it made us feel good, not just because we were doing something worthy, but also because it was bloody good fun.
Yeah, of course. So what's it like in Germany with all this shit going on then, Matt? Are you kind of exempt from it, or
Pretty
are
much,
you pointing and laughing at England right now?
Yeah, quite a lot. No, it's been prices are going up here anyway. Fuel's going up.
Oh God, prices are mental.
There's the cost of. I mean, we're on oil heating here, so the oil heating we pre-bought. So that was, pre-buying the oil for the heating for the winter. I think probably helps. We're not going to get any nasty surprises. It's cheaper over here anyway, and I've only been over here a year, so I'm still I've got British prices in my head. So I'm, when I go, say, to buy tobacco, for instance, I'm still amazed that it's only £5 for a week. But food,
wow,
I moved to Germany.
But yeah, I mean, fuel has gone up a lot, and people are feeling the pinch for getting around. Certainly,
so it is happening in other parts of Europe.
It is happening all over. But I think in the UK, you're being fucked extra hard without any lube.
Yeah, it's oligarch central here.
Yeah,
it's really not fun, and it's really not fun watching it happen to people either.
No, it isn't.
I mean, I'm really good at living on fuck all, like really good at living on fuck all. And I can make food, not much food, last a very long time, but that's kind of a skill. Yeah, he is selling Germany for sure, Nicola. Yeah,
we're all coming to live with you, Matt.
Come on. Well, rent is a lot cheaper. I won't say what we rent this place for, but compared to, it's not a lot more than what I was paying for one room in London.
Right.
And it's a good sized farmhouse.
Yes, the property prices have gone mental here.
Yeah.
I live on a little council estate, and the house behind me has just sold for nearly £250,000.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's a prefab.
Bonkers.
So I mean, it's got a nice big garden, but it's just sold for nearly. I mean, the property prices here since they took the toll off the Severn Bridge have risen anyway. But,
well, I mean, I live in like pretty much the cheapest part of Nottingham, like inner city Nottingham, and my 26-year-old kid is living with me because for what they could afford on their wage, they'd have the worst kind of uninhabitable bedsit you can imagine.
And it's getting worse.
And it's getting worse. So
and interest rates are going mental.
Living with mum, I think, is going to become the norm for people kind of into their 30s. That's just weird, isn't it?
So what can people do now apart from making bread and keeping an eye out for their mates and maybe chucking them a few quid a month and stuff like that, and watching the lights on the old people's places?
I mean, that's ground level stuff, isn't it? Just you're very basic, making sure people are okay. But in terms of changing the bigger picture for all of us, I don't know. What can we do? Do we just need to start burning shit down? That's kind of what I revert to.
I think we have to getting through to people that the issue is that these rich fuckers are hoarding more and more and more, and the reason that we're all living in poverty right now, so many of us are,
they've got all of it, is
because they didn't create COVID so they could do it, but they definitely took advantage.
They capitalized on it.
Absolutely. Sure. Saw the opportunities and because they're opportunists, right? we can't go out on the street and protest unless there's so many of us. There's nothing they can do. So either we've got to how do we mobilize people into standing up and be counted and saying no when they're sending people to prison when they've started the fight with them, you know, and threatening to put tags on us if we go to a protest, or ripping apart vigils to women who are raped and murdered by the police.
Got to be defiant in the face of that, though. We've got to say, you know, you're threatening with all this stuff, and we're going to do our shit anyway.
But how do we encourage people to do that when they're so scared of losing what they've got?
There have to be the numbers to do that. I think the industrial action that is currently happening is going to be a big part of it. I think, you know, when the workers come out, solidarity, solidarity to the CWU and the RMT and the nurses and the PTS. Yeah, absolutely. Solidarity with all of those groups, and the more industrial action there is, the better, because there is still, I mean, the trade unions don't have the power that they used to have years ago, but workers do still have power. Workers are in numbers, and that's, you know, that's significant. But it needs to be more than that, and we can't rely on, oh, well, in the next election the Tories will get voted out, because of course they will, but, well, I hope they will, but what we'll get is the Labour Party, which, let's face it, is Tory light. And that's, you know, there might be minor improvements, but they will be minor. It will be a shift, not a change at best. We can't just rely on a change of government. I mean, parliamentary politics don't do fuck all.
No, but that mindset that it's all about that.
Yeah,
even with people I know and love and respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
that's what we've got to do. We've got to get better MPs. And
I'm very sure that when the next general election comes, I'm very sure the Tories will get voted out. You know, I think they probably have run their course now. But that doesn't mean that we can wait for the next election and then down tools. You know, we'll just end up going round in these same cycles, getting progressively worse and worse off and accepting more and more shit. There needs to be...
While the rich get richer.
While the rich get richer, and we just get subdued. There needs to be a massive change of consciousness. And I don't have the answers. I don't know how.
No, I wouldn't have a lot of, like we said earlier, apathy is a huge thing.
What's the enemy?
And a lot of people just don't care. They don't, you know. And
someone read what Nicholas just put.
Nicholas said, I think Nicholas, responding to my comment about my 26-year-old living with me. So Nicholas said a friend has a 20-year-old son and 2 little ones. She loses out by having to pay council tax, etc. But he can't afford his own place either, despite working.
No, because you lose your discount.
Yeah, absolutely. I lost my council tax discount when Jay moved back in with me. I mean, Jay pays board. You know, they're not freeloading.
Yeah, mine's just gone because I've taken a lodger.
Because you've got a lodger, absolutely.
With her otherwise.
But, you know, I think the idea of growing adults having to live with their parents, potentially, as I say, into their 30s or even older, that's just completely unacceptable. I mean, I don't mind Jay living with me, obviously. They're great company, and they were fantastic help when I was incapacitated when I had surgery. You know, I don't think Jay minds living with me. I'm not an overbearing mother or anything. But it should be... You know, kind of young people.
Oh God, I'd go mental. I mean, if I had to live with my mother now,
Christ. Yeah, I couldn't do it either. But I think, you know, being able to have some independence, it should be something that you can take for granted. And you know, if you're on benefits and you've got an older child, I mean, I'm fortunate in that I don't have to rely on benefits. But if you're on benefits and you have an adult child come to live with you, then it fucks up your housing benefit. You have to, you know, pay chunks of rent and council tax, and it can affect your benefits quite significantly. It's awful. It's an awful situation for everybody for all sorts of reasons. And there are enough houses. That's the thing. We keep being told there's not enough housing, but you walk around any inner city area and there are houses boarded up everywhere. Yeah. You know, there are houses sitting empty.
Or any seaside town.
Nicholas says, how can you get an independent life, romantic relationship, etc.? Well, exactly that. Yeah, and you know, on a personal level, it's a bit of a killer for my own love life having a 26-year-old living with me.
I've only had a lodger for what day is it? 8 days. And that's okay. I've got a wank in the daytime now.
It's very much a your place, not mine situation with me at the moment.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right, on that note.
Yeah, wanking keeps you warm, so that's
and it's good for your mental health.
I've got an echo now.
Yeah, I had one just now.
Oh.
No mind.
Oh, that's Jay. That's the Deathly Project. I've just outed my kid talking about me a lot. They're listening in from wherever they are at the moment.
Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, you've killed my love life, mate.
But yeah, small little acts of activism. Just keep looking out for each other. That's what we've got.
I think that's the best way to build up a base. If you want anything doing, sort of, if you lead by example, and if we want to ultimately get people to pay attention and to care more about stuff, then perhaps caring more about people.
Yeah, we need to focus on community.
Is the way to go.
Well, caring about other people is caring about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, build it up from the bottom.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, and you don't have to make a song and dance about it. I mean, some of us do not because I want people to go, oh, isn't Gail lovely? She's giving people £10 a month. It's because if I shout out that I'm doing it, it will encourage other people to do it.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine to say what you're doing if you want to, even if it's because, I know you don't, but even if it's because you want applause, well, okay, take your applause, well done.
Oh, I just want if change.
If that encourages other people to do the same, then great.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. People are inspired by other people, aren't they? And not in a, oh, you're really inspirational, but in a, oh, that's a really good idea, actually. I hadn't thought about that. I'm going to do that too.
I saw someone else doing it.
Yeah,
so I just went,
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do that. And if I shout about it, someone else might do it for someone else. And I think that's...
Because it's okay to learn from each other, actually. It's a really good, positive thing.
And it's all also good to share positive action as well,
Oh, it is, because it's encouraging. You watch the news and it can get very easy to get into that mindset. Everything is shit. Everything is awful. And I just don't want to be here. But when we hear about those small things that people are doing, good things for each other, it just gives us hope and it gives us, positivity. If you can't give money, give time. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But the term do-gooder is so dirty.
It really is, yeah.
Always has been. I remember as a kid, people go, oh, she's such a do-gooder. And it's like, what? Hang on, why is doing good seen as bad? That's really confusing.
Yeah. Well, it's always seen as kind of, interfering, sticking your nose in where it's not wanted, because we should all just live our own little blinkered lives and not give a shit about what's going on outside of our own experience.
It's not happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, we all need to be fucking look, because it's definitely happening.
Let's all be do-gooders. Let's all be busybodies.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck knows what we're going to talk about next week, but we'll be here.
We'll think of something.
I might have something lined up, but I'll let you know in a couple of days.
Yeah, we never know, right? Thanks for joining us. And if you caught the end of it, you can watch again at your leisure. It'll be staying up. And stay warm.
Like and subscribe and all that business.
And if you do want to donate something so we can get some less shit intro music, that'd be lovely.
Okay.
Yeah, only £20 a month, and you don't have to listen to it anymore.
That's an incentive.
It's like bad hold music, isn't it?
It was a bit lift music-y.
Right. I wanted
Kill
to
us,
die.
Matt.
Kill us, we'll go to bed. No.
Next week.